The Silver Tsunami. Will we ride the wave or be crushed by it? Hey folks, welcome to Retirement Roadmap with Master Plan Retirement Consultants. My name is Evan. With me as always, retirement planner Mark Fricks. Mark, we have a massive generation of baby boomers looking to retire over the course of the next 20 plus years. In fact, the youngest baby boomers turn 60 this year. The oldest are 77 and 78. You're included in that generation.
Yeah, that's right around my brother's. My brother's 61, so he just made it under the boomer. And not to get off on a tangent, but apparently they've come up with a new name for the younger boomers.
Oh, what's that?
Because I can't remember what it is, but but it's because the older boomers are totally different than the younger boomers. I'm totally different than some of our clients who are in their 70s.
Yeah.
Just different ways of thinking, closer to World War II. I was born in 1960. I mean, that Vietnam War was where what I was raised in. But anyway, we'll get that to you in the next episode. So there's a reason to tune in next time.
What do they call the younger generation of boomers? Stay tuned.
All right. But anyway, there's a bunch of them. Like more than I can count on fingers and toes, right?
Well, I'll tell you how much there is. So first of all, the baby boomer generation includes people born between 1946 and 64. So you just made the cut. Based on 2020 census data, there are approximately 76.4 million baby boomers living in the U.S. today. Based on the data from the 2020 Census Bureau, the National Center for Health Statistics and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a 2023 Washington Post article reports that 55.7 million people are 65 and older, an increase of 15.2 million, which is 38% of people 65 and above since 2010, compared to just 2% growth in the under 65 population. The report projects a climb to roughly 80.8 million residents 65 and older by 2040, more than double the number in 2000.
Think of all the ramifications of that. I know we're going to get into some of them today about health care, long-term care, and transfer of wealth, but just think how, like Japan has been caught in this conundrum for quite a while, where most of their population is older, not working anymore, not working much, the younger generation not having enough babies, they're doing careers, and their economy has been really hit hard for 30, 40 years now. And so it definitely can affect, the overall economy, which is the macro effect, right? Today we'll be talking more, I think, about the micro effect.
Well, this even predicts the doubling of the number of even older residents by 2040. So with the count of those 85 and older expected to grow from 6.7 million in 2020 to 14.4 in 2040.
Almost a doubling.
Listen to this. In 2020, there were nearly 105,000 residents 100 or older. So we're living longer too, especially with progressions in medical advancements. So not only do we have the largest generation, they're also living longer than we have in the past as well.
But are we living better?
Yeah,
no, I'm serious.
Question.
I mean, if it means sitting in an assisted living and then a memory care and then a nursing home for the last 10 years of your life, is prolonging life. And this is not a discussion on anything except just the quality of life. So the length has been increased. So now we got to work on the quality of those last so many years. And we'll get into some stats, I think, here in a bit about long-term care insurance as well. But that's why long-term care insurance has just blown the doors off on cost.
Yeah.
We've not been big proponents of long-term care insurance itself, the traditional kind, because of what we're seeing. I had a client last night I met with, bought hers 25 years ago. Every 2 to 3 years, she gets an increase, or she can reduce her coverage. Now they're offering to buy her out for $50 grand.
That's 50 is pretty high.
That's
higher what we've seen.
But she's had it so long, she's paid so much. She's probably paid double that in.
For
So
sure.
that's why we're always looking at different tools. I mean, again, I know we'll get into this more later, but it is. I do want to, as we're talking about the micro effect on you as an individual, do think about the macro effect on our country, the economy, our world economy, and how that, because a lot of countries are going through the same thing.
Yeah. Gosh, can you imagine that 50K buyout? That seems like, we could do a lot with that. Not in long-term care, you can't.
That's a year and a half? No, it's a half a year. I'm sorry. Half a year. That's correct.
Wild.
Well, they talked about, we could invest it for 20 years. I said, yeah, but what if you
don't
need
have
long-term
20
care in
years,
5, or whatever. So it's quite a predicament.
So we see pressures on a lot of different, we're going to talk about some of these pressures that we're seeing that this silver tsunami could affect. We see right now a lot in the news talk about Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah, so you've got more people. Gosh, when Social Security 30 years ago, there were 16 people paying in for every recipient, okay? Now there's like 1.5 to 2. paying in for everybody that's getting Social Security. So that's why they're having to dip into the trust fund. There's not enough taxes coming in, only enough to cover 77% of your payment. So they're borrowing, no, I'm sorry, they're not borrowing. They're taking money out of their savings account. Please correct that. They're not borrowing it. Some people think that's what they're doing. They're taking it out of the savings account, which is called a trust fund, to make up the difference until they can fix it. If they don't fix it, again, your benefits theoretically in the 2034, 2035 year could drop by 22% based on current estimates. So it's not going away, but it could definitely reduce because, again, we don't have enough people working for the people that are retiring and disabled. So it is upside down. It's got to be fixed. I think it will be. I think there'll be people step up in Congress that will, have some great ideas. I've already heard some of them. So don't panic, but it is something we have in the back of our minds as planners as well.
So we see that.
And Medicare too.
Yeah,
by the way,
absolutely.
same thing. You've got fewer people because I don't know if you know this or not, but Part A Medicare, which when you turn 65 covers hospitals, hospice facilities, that program's also going broke. So you got Part A at 65, and you pay into that over your lifetime of working as part of your FICA. And so you don't pay for it in retirement, but somebody's got to pay for it. So it's coming out of the coffers or people currently working. And then, of course, the Part B, you pay for it. But that is something else that they are projecting. You need to fix it. Yet there's also politicians that want to expand it. And hey, when I get my health care bill, I'm right there about moving to Canada or something. It's expensive. But the alternatives are, number one, much higher taxes. Number two, less control in your health care. But I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting down to a squeeze point, and things have to be done. We got to have people in Washington that have the courage to step forward and get together with other colleagues and work together to fix this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we're always going to go back to, hey, folks, you need a retirement plan. That's why it's so important to make sure that you have this planned out, have a plan that is in place and flexible. Retirement plans always start with income, or at least they should. Make sure you have that next paycheck, otherwise your retirement is not going to last so long. If we're looking at our income plan and then all of a sudden we have 25% less in Social Security, we have to have a plan in place to know, okay, what do we do in that circumstance? Where can we create more income? Where can we create long-term growth to produce income in the future? There's so many moving parts, and especially as we talk about today, the different effects of the baby boomers retiring. You can see how all of those can affect a retirement plan, and we'll discuss that. But again, we're always going to come back to if you want to retire, first things first, figure out a plan. And if you want to discuss your own retirement, we are happy to do that with you with a complimentary consultation. You can go to masterplanretire.com and schedule your complimentary consultation. It's an opportunity for you to talk to us about your hopes and dreams and fears. All that good stuff in retirement will help you get a little organized, run a series of reports that's basically no planning, but we put the key in the ignition and turn on your retirement and say, okay, where are the strengths? Where are the weaknesses and opportunities for improvement? All of that is completely complimentary. So please take us up on that. That is masterplanretire.com, or call us 770-980-9262.
Talking about that income plan, Evan, it's amazing when we first put one together for a new client. We've not done any work. We've not made anything more efficient, maximized anything. And there's almost always a red gap every month. And so the secret to the income plan is plugging that red gap. Now, that may sound easy. Hey, I've got a 401k worth blank or whatever. That's called a nest egg. It's not about the size of the nest egg, it's how much income can it produce. Mm-hmm. And so that you want to maximize whatever size that nest egg is. How can you maximize the income? And there's some little tools we use that are a little more cutting edge that can give you much more income than a dividend portfolio can, than a bond portfolio can. And so you want to maximize that. But if Social Security does drop, you have a bigger income gap. So we have more work to do. And I've got some clients that say, leave Social Security out of my income plan. I want to see what I can do without it, right? I don't believe it's going that far. I really don't believe it's going away. But maybe we should start running some reports with Social Security being 20% less.
Maybe it's not affected so much, but hey, maybe taxes are going up to cover some
That's
of that.
the other problem too. So Social Security is fixed, but now taxes are higher to help pay for Social Security.
It's going to have to come from somewhere.
It's squeezing, but you can only squeeze I don't know what you
What
could
are you-
say.
what are you talking about, squeezing?
Can I put toothpaste back in a tube? That's totally
you can't.
unrelated to
No,
what we're
you
talking
can't.
about. But you can only squeeze so much juice out of a lemon. How about that? Good enough?
You
Okay.
saved it.
We're going
Thank
to
you.
cut all that out of this, so ignore that. So go ahead.
We've got our E&O insurance up to date, right? Okay. Um, so pressure on long-term care and healthcare period. We're seeing the greatest generation retire over the course of 20 plus years. Frankly, our healthcare system is unprepared for the complexity of caring for a population of older adults. The provider demand, the scope, the cost of spending, the infrastructure. I mean, every day you're seeing a new assisted living facility pop up on the corner somewhere. We have family, friends, and employee who are in the process with parents or loved ones. We see how much that costs. It's wild, the expense, but also we're running out of room.
Well, that tsunami wave you mentioned, the Silver Tsunami wave, is more than one earthquake causing it. Number one, again, this huge population of people that are moving through society, they've affected society every step of the way. Give you an example. There's been studies done, and I'll think of the author here in just a minute, but he's all about studying demographics and what it does to the economy. And so guess what were the best-selling stocks when, like when I was like beginning to have babies. Our family began having babies. Well, that was about the time that the whole baby boomers were having babies. So guess what? Some great companies were Colgate, who makes diapers, who makes formula. And this is serious. This is serious stuff that's really been studied. When the baby boomers were 16 through 18, that's around the time when the Ford Mustang came out. And that was a huge selling car because these 16 to 19-year-olds wanted that cool-looking 1965 Ford Mustang, and that's why sales took off. They read the population. So now we're to the point to where all these folks are in a position to where they are 60 and older, give or take, whatever your numbers were. I think it was 60 and older. And so now you've got this population of aging folks that not only are needing more care, we have more care we can give. There's more things we can do we couldn't do 30 years ago. But also because we're prolonging life, we are seeing the huge ramifications of dementia. That wasn't around 50 years ago. Yeah, grandma got a little senile, but true dementia for 10 years is a relatively new concept. At least the size that's happening now. And so is that because we are living longer? Is that because our generation was kind of raised in a processed generation? I ate Pop-Tarts instead of eggs for breakfast when I was a kid, right? Processed foods, is it more of more people sitting at the desk? I don't know. But I do know it has totally changed between the baby boomers and the number of people needing care for a longer period of time has created just a tsunami of medical needs. They can't put the facilities up fast enough.
And the strain is going to be felt by the entire healthcare industry because, listen, patients 65 and older account for 34% of the demand for physicians. By 2034, patients over 65 will account for 42% of that demand.
So approaching half.
Right.
Yeah. And again, more doctors, more therapists, just the whole thing, more facilities. Of course, now hospitals are kind of a parking lot for 2 days. Used to you'd stay in there a week. Now you move to another facility. We've got one client that had a stroke. She was in the hospital so many days, then the rehab unit at the hospital next to it, and then the next rehab unit, and then there's another one, and it's almost like a progression of a couple of months to get all the therapy she needs. But it's every facility, who knows what the cost is.
And it's going to go up. There's going to be limited resources, more demand. The cost will inevitably be higher. If you don't have a long-term care strategy, we're not saying go get long-term care insurance, but you do need to make sure that you have a strategy for long-term care built into your retirement plan. You want, even if it gets more and more expensive and there's fewer places and you feel crunched, you still want to be able to get as best as you can as far as long-term care nursing facility, because not to speak frankly, the bottom of the rung, if you're just wherever they put you, is not going to be, that's a plan technically, but
it's a fallback plan, very much a fallback plan. But now we're seeing home care kind of rise up in popularity, which I think is great.
Yeah.
It's actually about 10 to 15% more expensive than an assisted living center. So you're paying more for home care because you've got a one-on-one situation, whereas in assisted living, you've got 20 personnel and 100 residents or whatever. So they're kind of dividing people up and taking care of them. And so a lot of people say, well, we're going to take care of them at home. And we've seen the ramifications of that. You can only do that so long.
Well, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think there is something really good about aging in home with multiple generations in a home. I mean, that's something that we've kind of lost over the past generation or so in America. We're a lot more independent and kids move out. Other cultures and other countries, they age together and have multi-generational homes. I think
that's absolutely good.
Could be a good thing.
Problem is physically being able to take care of someone.
Eventually, you don't.
You've got maybe a father or a grandfather that's 6'2", 250. How do you get them out of bed? How do you get them to the dinner table? How do you take them to the restroom? Things that get more and more difficult. And I've read studies where caregiver, the main caregiver, it actually can affect their lifespan by 2 to 5 years. And so because you're spending 2, 3, 4, 5 years totally consumed with that care, not taking care of yourself, not getting time off, stressing, all of that. So again, I think a family group is great, but don't think that could last forever necessarily. Sometimes you've just got to, especially with Alzheimer's, people can get more violent or emotional, and they need more care than maybe they even, wander away at night at home, things like that. We've experienced some of that kind of stuff. And so it becomes almost impossible to keep them at home. So again, no gloom and doom. We actually have some tools we use. One provides a guaranteed income for life for a couple, if you're a couple, okay? And if one passes away, the money keeps coming in. If one has a long-term care need, the income can up to double, and one of ours actually triples the income. So that right there is a guaranteed income stream that increases because of long-term care. We have other tools like that too, as opposed to going out and spending $5,000 a month for a couple or long-term care, knowing in 5 years it's going to be $6,000. So don't be afraid to work with someone like us that is truly a holistic retirement consultant that looks at all of these areas. If you've been watching or listening to our shows, every week is a different subject. Social Security, taxes, the political climate, whatever has to do with Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff, because every piece is important.
And one of the dangers for couples in long-term care is you spend down your money if you don't have a plan in place, and one spouse gets sick and needs assisted living or even more. The average stay for men, I think, in assisted living is 2 years, and women 4. So something like that. I could be off.
And then they may transfer to a nursing home.
Yeah, and that just spend. If you don't have a strategy in place to efficiently spend that money, then eventually that spouse passes. The second spouse, the surviving spouse, is left with fewer assets for their own
maybe
situation.
$500,000 less, maybe more. You don't know, because it's drained, and now they got another 5, 10, 20 years to live with less assets, also lost income. If you've got a couple, they're typically both getting Social Security. One dies, one of those Social Securities goes away. So a reduction in income, if you got a pension, some of that might go away. So income planning and plugging gaps is so critical. 20 years ago, when all I did was invest money for folks, if I'd seen what we know today and how important it was to transition to what we're doing, I would have done it a long time ago, but it has been worth every minute and every client.
Absolutely. Yeah. So another not so doom and gloom aspect of this is that there's going to be a massive generational wealth transfer from the boomers to their children and their heirs, whether they're retirement assets, investable assets. Real estate is a huge one. A lot of the boomers have said that they were going to pass on their homes to their children, which is actually a good thing considering the crunch that we're in right now. For my generation, millennials and younger, the concept of having a home seems fleeting for a lot of folks right now.
Yeah, and folks that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, they may have been in their home 10, 20, 30 years. They've got maybe a great interest rate or a lower one, got a lot of equity built up. But please, this is not a legacy planning episode, but make sure when it comes to transferring wealth that you use a will or a trust. Don't start transferring things into your kids' names before you pass away without advice, because in many cases you've dug a tax hole. It's called step up in basis. Today's show's not about that. But also when it comes to transferring that wealth, we have a lot of our clients bring their kids in with them for a couple of meetings to not necessarily see what all their parents have. That's up to the parents, but mostly to get to know us, because those first 6 months to a year after the passing, There's a lot of work to be done, and they want to know who they're working with. And most parents put in their paperwork, hey, we want master plan to continue working for at least a year or two with our kids to minimize taxes, to minimize probate, to make sure that things are lined up. Do we even have to address probate? Have we avoided probate totally? To make sure. So that's, we develop relationships with the next generation or two. I think that's critical, and it's hard to do that with a big, maybe an Edward Jones office somewhere. Do you bring all your kids? That's not really a planning firm. They're more of an investment firm. Nothing wrong with that, but when you get to a certain point, and we usually say age 50, 55, got to start looking at retirement planning. But anyway, that's an important part of what we do, is that next generation, minimizing taxes, minimizing probate costs, maximizing what goes to the kids and grandkids.
Yeah,
that's a great legacy.
You want to hear some crazy numbers?
Let me brace. Okay,
hang on.
Go ahead.
According to global real estate consultant agency Knight Frank, approximately $90 trillion in wealth will move from the silent generation and baby boomers to millennials between now and 2044. According to financial services industry consultant Cerulli Associates, is that correct? Cerulli, am I pronouncing that correctly?
I have to look at it.
Baby boomers alone will leave about $68 trillion through 2044 to their Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z heirs. By comparison, folks, if you want to wrap your head around this number, the accumulated government debt in the United States is currently only $36.2 trillion.
Oh.
90 trillion passed. So only time will tell how that will affect our economy. Will those inheriting the assets invest in the economy? They'll spend the money. Money will be spent.
There'll be some Ferraris sold.
I've read both sides of the coin. There's opportunity for stimulation in the economy, spending money, investing, real estate turnover, all this kind of good stuff. But then there are some who are forecasting that a large portion of the wealth will be spent on health care.
Ooh, wow. And all of that means more tax money, because most of this money is held in IRA, 401 type of accounts. And if you don't use it up, whoever gets it, kids, grandkids, nephews, nieces, has to take it out in 10 years. So I expect kind of a tax boon as well during that time. So it is amazing to watch it and take a look at it. And again, with that much money, what's nice is if you do the proper estate planning, I don't mean just having a great document, but the proper estate planning, you can control that money. I know this sounds kind of weird, but beyond the grave. So if you want to make sure your kids don't blow it all in the first year or the first 10 years or whatever, then we can spread that out, and that's binding, and they can only get so much unless it's an emergency. We have little loopholes, but to make that money last longer. And also, can you imagine, a kid of mine inheriting an IRA worth $1 million, and I'm like, hey, I've never had this kind of money. I take it all out at once. Yeah. I just paid $400,000 in taxes, so I have $600,000 left, and I go out and start buying stuff. I've seen it happen, and your 40 years of working just got blown by somebody in a year or whatever. Not every kid, not most kids.
Decide which kid should inherit the Roth for that purpose.
That's right. But being able, and also, not having all their money in their hands keeps them out of trouble from a standpoint of lawsuits, divorces, things like that too. So it's kind of a good reason to spread it out as well.
We do have a great episode on that called The Gift of Preparation. You can go to our YouTubes. Or our streaming platform for podcasts. Yeah, but check that out, The Gift of Preparation. We cover all legacy and estate planning topics on that episode. Yep. Almost done today, Mark. Any final parting words with our audience?
Always appreciate you guys joining us. If you're one of these folks that are driving around Atlanta with our phone number on your seat, and you've been meaning to call us for 6 months to a year, pick it up and do it now and take advantage of our complimentary consultation. Until we see each other again, remember, plan well and prosper.
This was Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks of Master Plan Retirement Consultants. To schedule a complimentary consultation, go to masterplanretire.com or call 770-980-9262. Thanks for listening, and remember, plan well and prosper.
All matters discussed during this show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. Advisory services offered through Master Plan Retirement Consultants, a registered investment advisor in the state of Georgia. Mark Fricks and Master Plan Retirement Consultants are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.